How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Aiden. So today we're talking about this team in regards to stinking. New York City, 90 degree, 95 degree, smelly garbage. That's kind of what we've been smelling up from the Bronx lately. And I'll tell you what, there's a couple players, we want to discuss, notably Gleyber Torres, former All-Star guy who's capable of being a really good player every year. But this year, man, I don't know what happened to him. Like, he is not the same player. I dove into his metrics this morning. I took a look at what I could find to see, where is he going wrong here? What's going on with his bat? Why is he not hitting? I found something kind of interesting I want to tell you guys about in a little bit. And we're going to talk about Ben Rice, the young first baseman who took over for Anthony Rizzo. Obviously, the Yankees go out and they get J.D. Davis yesterday, who's going to help at first base, maybe play a little bit of third base. Has a good bat. Career-wise, he's been really solid. So defensively, he's okay. Competent, you could say, maybe competent. But I'll tell you what, when you look at his, offensive attributes, he can offer you some value there, better than what we've been getting from the bottom half of this order, Aiden. But looking at Gleyber Torres first and foremost, give me your impression of him. Do you think he can turn it around? Where do you think he's going wrong here? This is not the version we saw from him last season when he was our second best hitter behind Aaron Judge. Now he's a liability. He's a black hole in the batting order. Can he turn things around? What do you think?
Alex, I think from the start of the season, Gleyber did get off to a really bad start, and something we've seen from Gleyber throughout the years, I think, and maybe it's a little bit of fan fiction, but I think it's something that, it's tangible that you can see even on the broadcast. This guy gets in his own head a lot, and it's like a confidence thing. I remember in 2022, his name was being floated around on the trade block. The Yankees almost pulled the trigger on sending him to the Marlins, and the trade fell through. I think it may have been, I don't know what happened there, but I remember after that trade, fell through and he was on the trade block all month. It got to his head. I remember him having a bad July, an even worse August, and it seems like that's kind of what's happening this year, too. He got off to a really bad start, and he just hasn't been able to pick it up. And I think something that's really lingering in his head is the contract extension. Is he going to get extended by the Yankees? That's been looming for him. I think it was even looming last year, too. There's no job security for him, and I think he understands that at the end of this year, the Yankees are probably going to replace him. So this is a contract year for him. He needs to play the best he can play to go and get a good contract on the free agent market, or at least a deservable extension from the Yankees. But he has just not been that player. He has not been a good player. He has an 85 WRC plus on the year, a 218 batting average, a 338 slug, and a 284 WOBA. That is just not the Gleyber Torres we know. He only has 0.5 FWAR. It's just not the Torres we know. He's been even worse in the month of June, a 76 WRC plus. And Alex, I know you talked about this, right before we started recording. With Stanton going out, somebody's got to step up, because Stanton, to many people's surprise, has been a consistent producer in the Yankees lineup this year. He's been really important to the middle of the order. And now with him out, who's going to step up? Because, once you get to the fifth hitter in this Yankees lineup now, it gets really, really thin, and it gets really, really scary. And usually someone that would step up in situations like this is Gleyber Torres. When Judge has gone down in past years, Gleyber has stepped it up. When Stan has gone down in past years, he's stepped it up. The question is, can he do that now, or is he going to continue to lull through the season like he has been all year?
Yeah, that's kind of the question, is will he turn it around? And, the underlying metrics, they don't say that. They don't suggest that he's getting better anytime soon. Sometimes you see guys like, for example, Austin Wells, his batting average is far different than his expected batting average. And Gleyber Torres, my friends, well, his expected batting average is 208, and he's currently hitting 218. So his underlying metrics suggest he's supposed to be worse than he actually is. He has a 338 expected slugging actually, that's exactly what his slugging is. So, he's kind of on pace there. But, in the bat speed, 22nd percentile, average exit velocity, 33rd percentile, barrel rate, 37th percentile, hard hit rate, 22nd percentile, 34.7% down, 6% from last year. The only thing he ranks above average in is launch angle sweet spot at 53 percentile. It's not, it's marginal, basically average. Chase rate, 88th. and then walk rate 64th. Everything else well below average. Not to mention, we haven't even touched on his defense yet. Good God, the guy is horrible defensively, and it's unfortunate, right? Because like we've seen flashes of him being like a good defender, and Aaron Boone said something kind of interesting like 2 weeks ago. And you know how like Gleyber sometimes is like really lackadaisical with his throws, like he kind of just like swings it with his arm, and every now and then there's an error, and Aaron Boone's like, well, I wouldn't do it that way, but it seems to work. And it really doesn't work. You know what I mean? It really doesn't freaking work. He has -3 defensive runs saved. Like he's on pace for -6, -7 this year. That's really bad, guys. That's like really well below average. Really well below average. So, when you're looking at Gleyber Torres, he's a net negative across the board. And can he turn it around? Maybe. His sprint speed, 27th percentile, is not even fast. Like, he's just a bad player right now. And then, when you look at his numbers of runners in scoring position, they're really bad too. 236, 303 OBP, 794 OPS. Like, the OPS is, like, serviceable, but not really. He has 3 homers and 24 RBIs, 12 strikeouts. But here's where I think there's an underlying thing that I found that I'll get your take on. I think it's really interesting, actually. So when it comes to Gleyber Torres, he has the highest launch angle in his career, aside from his rookie season. If you negate his 2018 rookie year, most you can probably look at that and say whatever. We leave that behind. He has 18.1 degree launch angle. That's 3 degrees more than it was last season, which is pretty. 18.1 is pretty high. Now, there's a really interesting correlation here. For the first time in his career, he has an infield fly ball percentage above 10%, and it's not just 10%, it's 15%. So he's doubled his infield fly ball percentage compared to some years. Last year was at 9%, now it's increased 6% this year. He's getting fewer home runs. Has a 7.4% home run to fly ball ratio, which is the lowest since 2021. He has a higher launch angle and a higher infield fly ball rate. Those things correlate to me. I think he should level out his swing a bit more. I think he's getting too much loft on his swing. I think he's trying to elevate the ball too much. Why not just play a Volpe kind of situation and just try to drive the ball? Drive the ball, put it in play, make contact. He's hitting too many pop-ups. He's not getting the ball over the fence. It's not resulting in home runs. I don't know why he doesn't try to level out that swing. I don't know if you've noticed anything similar watching him, but to me, that launch angle is becoming a problem. He's got to level it out, become more of a, slap that ball the other way, hit line drives, and the home runs will come. I think that's where I would suggest he maybe improve. Of course, I'm not a coach, and they might be trying to implement these things, but it's possible that they're throwing more, different off-speed pitches, fastballs, trying to actually capitalize on his weaknesses. That's why the launch angle is so high. But, when you're looking at how he fares against specific pitches, it's really problematic. Against fastballs, he's hitting 274, but against breaking balls, he's hitting 165. And pitchers are throwing more breaking balls and off-speed pitches to him. They're not giving him fastballs to hit. So they're figuring out, well, if we give him breaking balls and off-speed, he tries to elevate the ball with his launch angle so much, he's hitting pop-ups. He has to be more patient, try to level out the swing. Do you see kind of a correlation there, or maybe I'm just making stuff up?
No, it's actually funny that you bring it up, because I was going to say he's running one of the highest fly ball rates of his career at 44.3%. The next highest one was 45.9%, and that was in 2022. And, he's hitting a lot of ground balls too at 35.8% ground ball rate. So I think you're onto something there. There might be something definitely wrong with his launch angle. And I think something else that's going wrong with him too is his average exit velocity has dropped too by like a full mile per hour. Last year was 89.7. That was his average exit velocity. And this year it's 88.3. I mean, that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it is. That 1 mile per hour is huge. I mean, back in 2022, he had a 90.4 average exit velocity. So I think maybe this year he's maybe trying something different with a new hitting coach in James Rosen, but whatever that is isn't working. And I think, when it comes to the All-Star break, I think he's going to have to make some very, very big adjustments if he wants to be a contributor for this team next year, or for the next half of the season. Maybe it's fixing that launch angle. Maybe it's trying to just, like you said, just drive the ball, try and use the whole field. I remember, we've kind of been saying it his whole career, and I'm a big pull fly balls guy, but I don't think that works for Gleyber Torres. I don't think that works for his player profile. This is somebody who has to use the whole field, and I people have been saying it. I think even David Cohn has said it on the broadcast. Gleyber Torres is at his best when he's going the other way, when he's not trying to pull the ball all the time. Because I remember, I want to say it was like early 2019. You just looked at him and he was trying to pull the ball the entire time. He was trying to just launch that ball up, elevate and celebrate, pull it, hit it into the left field stands, and it wasn't working. And then he made an adjustment where he was using all sides of the field, and he was one of the best, hitting infielders in baseball. So you really hope that Torres can make some kind of adjustment in, the next couple weeks or for the second half of the season, because the production the Yankees are getting out of him is just not sustainable. He can't be the black hole in the lineup that he is, especially with Carlos Stanton out and some of the offensive woes that's been going on. But yeah, Alex, it's looking really grim for Torres, and I think with the way he's performing, he is running himself out of New York.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound promising right now. I mean, if he wanted kind of a big payday, it looks like that chance is squandered. He may have to settle for a cheaper deal or a 1-year prove-it contract at this point. Look, the thing that you get with Gleyber Torres is volatility. 1 year he could be great, the next year he could be horrible. 1 year he's good defensively, the next year he's a liability. One day he's hitting home runs, the next day he can't hit it for a month. That's just the Gleyber Torres experience. He is wildly inconsistent. Now, I think that he is a good player, and it's in there somewhere. I think his confidence is shot. Whatever he's done to change his swing is hurting him dearly. They need to turn back the clock, man. That All-Star break needs to be an important week for him to get right and just maybe forget about the first half of the season. We've seen guys turn things around. But so speaking of guys who are stepping up to the plate and not walking away from it, Ben Rice. Ben Rice is looking really good, 25-year-old. Obviously promoted to help offset the loss of Anthony Rizzo. Ben Rice, lefty, good player. Doesn't look like a liability at first base by any means. He's hitting .294 with a .381 OBP. Now, it's 6 games, 21 plate appearances, tiny little sample size. I know a lot of people kind of reference that, but he's making good contact. He has a great eye. He won the Yankees Developmental Hitter of the Year award last year for a reason. He tore up the minor league system for a long time. I see him as a possible solution at first base long term. Look, the Yankees do not need him at catcher. He is a catcher by trade, but they don't need him there. Agustin Ramirez, some people are calling him a generational hitter at the catcher position. Austin Wells, I really like Austin Wells. I think he's a long-term asset here. Jose Trevino, one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, and his bat's not been that bad this year either. Unfortunately for Trevino, I could see the Yankees trading him at some point, probably next year during the offseason. With the hopes of promoting Agustin Ramirez and Austin Wells taking over as the everyday starter, Ramirez being that platoon righty at some point. So I do think the Yankees love to have that platoon there. Just righty-lefty kind of splits because Wells is not really good against left-handed pitching. And I think Ramirez is a far better offensive makeup and tool shed than Jose Trevino long-term, who's definitely batting above his career averages. So looking at Ben Rice, probably don't need him at catcher. First base, I think keep giving him reps. I know we got J.D. Davis who can play there too. He has been for the Athletics. But I think Ben Rice, this kind of interesting narrative, like, oh, you got to platoon him. Like, J.D. Davis can hit against left-handed pitchers. Guys, like, Ben Rice is a monster against left-handed pitching. A monster. I think he had, 291 in the minors against left-handed pitching. He sees the ball really well coming across the plate. So I don't think this whole, platoon concept is, necessary just yet. Why don't they just see if he can hold his own against lefties? He's, historically been arguably even better against lefties than righty pitching. So I would love to see the Yankees give him more chances, see if he can, hold his own. I know they want to play this numbers game, but how do you play a numbers game if you don't have a sample size to work off of? And the sample size he has suggests he's really good against left-handed pitching. Give him chances. If he struggles, you can have J.D. Davis help you there. I just don't think that there's necessarily a reason to make that change prematurely, until we get a little bit more numbers, a little bit more statistical value to determine whether he's actually bad at hitting lefty pitching. So, what are your thoughts on Ben Rice, his early return, early impressions? I think he's been solid so far.
Yeah, Alex, I gotta agree. I saw the J.D. Davis platoon news yesterday, and I kind of thought it's a little unfair to Ben Rice to only give him 6 games before you throw him into a platoon role. I understand he's a rookie, and it's not out of the ordinary for a rookie to be in a platoon role, especially for a position that has been completely lacking production all season. But it's hard to look at all of Ben Rice's games so far and say that he's really had a bad game. I know he went 0 for 3 versus Atlanta, I think on Friday, but through all of these games, Alex, these at-bats have looked phenomenal to me. I think his swing decisions are great. He's seeing a lot of pitches. He's working the count. And the biggest question, when he got called up last week, the biggest thing that people were talking about with Ben Rice is his weakness is the whiff percentage, his whiff rate. He doesn't, his contact rates. And that's just the profile he has as a hitter. He's kind of a power guy, and he's a power hitting first baseman. Of course, he's going to have whiff issues, but so far he hasn't had those whiff issues. I think he has a 20% whiff rate, which is pretty good. He hasn't struck out a ton since he's been on here. His expected stats look great. I know it's a very small sample, but he, like you said, he looks like someone who could be a long-term answer at first base for the Yankees. You like his left-handed bat. You like that he can, for lack of a better word, just hit the pus out of the ball. So I'm really encouraged by him so far. And, his defense hasn't been a liability so far. He made that one, questionable play in the first game where there was a ball going to Torres, but he ran towards it anyway because of a shift issue. But that's just, rookie first baseman. He's still new to the position. I think there's definitely going to be some growing pains. But I think, as time goes on, we're going to see Ben Rice start to prove himself as a legitimate answer at first base. And, I like that you bring up that, Augustin Ramirez could be a solution at catcher, and then Wells is going to be back there. And I have talked about this to some people. I almost don't see a world where next year or even past August 1st, I don't see a world where all three of Austin Wells, Ben Rice, and Augustin Ramirez are all in the Yankees organization. Maybe that's just the pessimist in me, but I see the Yankees trading one of these guys, especially at the deadline, because I think the Yankees are going to be very, very active. I think Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner and Randy Levine, they want to go for it this year because they know this is a team that can do it. They have a ton of pressure on them to win a championship, so they're going to be very active at the deadline. They're going to be in the mix for bullpen arms. I hope, and I feel like I almost know that they're going to be in the mix for a third baseman because that's just another black hole in the lineup. DJ LeMahieu has been awful since he's been back. You almost wish that they were playing Cabrera there instead of LeMahieu. So it's hard for me to see. If they're going to be this active at the deadline, it's hard for me to not see one of Austin Wells, Ben Rice, or Augustin Ramirez getting traded. Do I want them to? No. I think all three of them are going to be very, very serviceable MLB players. I think Augustin Ramirez's bat is really, really promising, and he can be a dangerous, dangerous hitter in this lineup and be a problem for the rest of the league. I don't know about Wells. I still think he's getting really, really unlucky. I wish we could get a larger sample from him, but he's in a platoon role, and Jose Trevino is getting more reps than him because he's just been a better hitter results-wise, and he's a platinum glove defender. But tying it back to Ben Rice, he's been really impressive so far. I think the Yankees really like him. Could they maybe be, showcasing him a little bit for trade bait? I don't think so. I think they want to keep him at first base and see if he can, be a guy in October, to be honest with you. But like I said, just to tie it all back, I think Ben Rice has been very, very impressive so far. I wish we could see more of a sample from him instead of throwing him into a platoon role right away, but I think JD Davis is going to be very, very serviceable as well. I just wish they would platoon third base instead.
Yeah, I do agree with you, but we'll see what happens. I think that Cashman, like you said, will be active at the deadline. Bullpen arms certainly will be on the way. I think JD Davis was a cheap, Jordan Groshans, and they get him and cash considerations. I think that's actually a pretty good value grab for the Yankees. In terms of Groshans was doing nothing in AA, and then you also consider the fact that the Yankees got cash in addition. So I do like this. I do like that move, but I think it's just a holdover. I think it's we got to survive until we figure out, can Gleyber turn things around? Can DJ LeMahieu heat up? We need more sample size. We need more action. And by the way, that kind of goes back into my Ben Rice point. If we're going to give DJ LeMahieu tons of action. We're going to give, these guys tons of action. Why are we not going to give Ben Rice all this action before you try to platoon him? So, again, we'll see what happens. I don't think they're necessarily, like, rushing to move pieces around, but I do think that Cashman will have his hands full at the deadline, and he will have to make some aggressive moves. So, we'll see how things progress. Obviously, we got you guys covered, as always, on Fireside Yankees. Make sure to like and subscribe, as always. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Perfect.